Thank you for watching QTV News. We take a look at stories making headlines in our news. President Edgar Lungu has ordered for a complete lockdown of Kafue town starting 15th April 2020 to allow for a thorough screening exercise of COVID-19 and disinfection of the district. And at least 7 people have died in various road traffic accidents which happened across the country during the Easter holiday. And now the news in detail. President Edgar Lungu has ordered for a complete lockdown of Kafue town and has halted movements of people in and out of the district with effect from 15th April 2020. Speaking at the COVID-19 latest update, Health Minister Dr. Chilufya said following the declaration of Kafue district as a hotspot for coronavirus infections after 3 cases were recorded, out of which 1 was a fatality, President Lungu has invoked the Public Health Act in order to allow for mass screening and testing in the district. Dr. Chilufya, who has announced that Zambia has not recorded any positive COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours out of 43 tests conducted, says health authorities will conduct massive screening and disinfecting to quantify the extent of the COVID-19 pandemic in Kafue. Dr. Chilufya has urged Kafue residents to stay home and cooperate with authorities as they carry out the undertaking.
After a week of no cases recorded in Zambia, the country recorded the death of a man by COVID-19 from Kafue. That prompted more tests to be done, and hence 3 cases were recorded. Following this development, Health Minister Chilufya has identified Kafue town as an affected area. The minister has since announced that President Edgar Lungu has declared a lockdown for Kafue town starting tomorrow.
I'd like to also emphasize that Kafue that we reported on yesterday as a potential hotspot continues to be an area of focus. Kafue is, by description, using the provisions of the Public Health Act, an infected area. And in accordance with the Public Health Act, Cap 295 for the laws of Zambia, His Excellency the President of Zambia, Dr. Edgar Lungu, has authorized the invocations of provisions of Section 5.1 and 2.12.2 of Statutory Instrument number 21 and 22, the laws of Zambia 2020, to restrict movement of the people in Kafue, in and out of Kafue, tomorrow, Wednesday, 15th April 2020, to ensure that health workers do mass screening and targeted testing in all the hotspots.
Meanwhile, the minister has announced an increase in surveillance testing and case finding for all hospitals to establish the extent of the problem.
This strategic massive screening and targeted testing will help us quantify, establish the exact extent of the problem. Therefore, Kafue needs to be disinfected. Kafue needs to be thoroughly screened. And we need to ensure that we do not let Kafue blow. Because as Kafue blows, we will affect other parts of the country. Kafue can easily extend to Sambia province, into Lusaka. You work in Lusaka, you stay in Kafue, stay home. And we will be coming through. You run a shop in Kafue, stay home. We will be coming through to disinfect those places. Remember, the deceased had a very busy outlet in Kafue where we were saying we were selling fish. And a lot of people in Kafue used to go to that shop.
And Dr. Chilufya says emergency and casualty departments within the hospitals will remain functional while elective outpatient review units will be closed.
Now, the outpatient clinics that have been closed are not outpatient clinics that are to do with outpatient consultation at reception. So the casualty department, the emergency department, the medical casualty and surgical casualty departments, the medical departments, medical filter clinics, and the surgical and the casualty departments will all remain functional and will continue seeing patients. What we have slowed down on are the elective outpatient review clinics. where we have set particular dates for us to come and review you for your chronic condition and your stable condition. However, we put in measures for you to get in touch with your practitioner, ensure that you can consult as your due date comes through. We are putting measures to review the days that you had.
Msenge Nkonde reporting for QTV.
At least 7 people have died in various road traffic accidents which happened across the country during the Easter holiday. Police Public Relations Officer Esther Katongo disclosed that a total of 142 road traffic accidents were recorded during the just ended Easter holiday, out of which 7 were fatal, 17 were serious road traffic accidents in which 24 persons were seriously injured, and 35 were slight road traffic accidents in which 42 persons were slightly injured. Mrs. Katongo further disclosed that Lusaka province recorded the highest number of road traffic accidents with 57, in which 1 death was recorded. Copperbelt had 31 accidents with 2 deaths. Central had 11 accidents with 1 death. Western had 8 accidents with 1 death. Northwestern had 6 accidents with 1 death, and Muchinga had 4 accidents with 1 death. Mrs. Katongo, however, states that there has been a reduction of 70 accidents recorded during the 2020 Easter holidays, where 145 accidents were recorded compared to the 2019 Easter holidays, where 212 accidents were recorded, attributing the reduction to reduction in movements by the general public due to COVID-19 and also general compliance to road traffic rules and regulations by the motorists and other road users. Meanwhile, a reduction of over 442,000 kwacha in admission of guilt fees has been recorded in 2020 compared to 2019 due to the suspension of SNAP checkpoints, and which has been necessitated as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mrs. Katongo says a total amount of 691,800 kwacha was raised as admission of guilt fine in 2019 as compared to 249,887 kwacha, which was raised as admission of guilt in 2020, showing a reduction of 441,913 kwacha due to suspension of SNAP checkpoints due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
During the 2020 Easter holiday, a total number of 147 road traffic accidents were recorded, out of which 7 were fatal, in which 7 persons were killed. 17 were serious road traffic accidents, in which 24 persons were seriously injured. 35 were slight road traffic accidents, in which 42 persons were slightly injured. In comparison with the 2019 Easter holiday, 212 road traffic accidents were recorded in 2019 as compared to 142 road traffic accidents which were recorded this year. The figures show a reduction by 70 road traffic accidents. The decrease in road traffic accidents and casualties in 2020 Easter period recorded accidents may be attributed to a reduction in movements by the general public due to COVID-19 and also to general compliance to road traffic rules and regulations by motorists and other road users.
The Human Rights Commission has commended the Police Inspector General of Police Kakuma Kanganja for guiding the police to restrain from using excessive force during the enforcement of the public health guidelines and Presidential Directive on Coronavirus. In a statement, Inspector General of Police Kakoma Kanganja advised police officers involved in the enforcement of provisions of Statutory Instrument Number 22, which spells out regulations aimed at containing the COVID-19, to always operate and carry out their duties within the confines of the law. Commission spokesperson Mwelwa Mulea says the directive is commendable because it is consistent with the constitutional mandate of the Zambia Police Service of upholding the Bill of Rights as enshrined under Article 193(2)(e) of the Constitution of Zambia Amendment Act No. 2 of 2016. Mr. Mulea says the Commission is raising a red alert against police brutality because in the past it has received and dealt with complaints of individuals who have suffered broken ribs, legs, arms, teeth, and lost sight or eyes, sense of hearing, and ruptured private parts, thereby terminally violating their right to found a family. He adds that in extreme cases, some victims have died, depriving them of their right to life, which is why the Commission calls on members of the public and public officials to refrain from the culture and practice of celebrating or condoning any form of violence, particularly by the law enforcement officers. The Commission has reiterated its support for effective implementation of public health guidelines and the Presidential Directive on Coronavirus within the established legal framework because they are for the greater good of promoting and protecting the right to health and life. Mr. Mlea has since urged all members of the public and citizens to comply with the guidelines for their own interest, that of their families and members of the public at large.
The Human Rights commends the statement by the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kwakomakanganja, guiding the police to refrain from using excessive force during the implementation of the guidelines on COVID-19, in line with the constitutional mandate of the Zambia Police Service of upholding human rights as enshrined in Article 193(2)(e) of the Constitutional Zambia Amendment Act. Celebrate or condone a culture of violence, particularly by law enforcement officers, because the consequences of doing so may be as grave as, suffering permanent disability or in some cases death. The Human Rights Commission reiterates its position in terms of supporting fully the public health guidelines and the presidential directive framework, because such measures are aimed at improving the betterment of society at large to health and life.
The Law Association of Zambia LAZ has dismissed as misleading assertions that the mandate of its current council has expired. LAZ President Eddie Mwitwa says the correct position is that the Council of LAZ only changes office at an elective annual general meeting. Mr. Mwitwa has clarified that this elective AGM to usher in a new LAZ council has however not taken place owing to the coronavirus pandemic and the imposed restrictions on the public gatherings thereof. He has disclosed to QTV News that the association nevertheless expects to hold its elective AGM by the 13th of July 2020, when the coronavirus pandemic is hopefully contained in the country. Mr. Mwitwa states that this is in keeping with the LAZ rules, which provides for a minimum of 9 months and a maximum of 15 months for holding an AGM from the last AGM. He says this entails that the current LAZ Council has the mandate to run affairs of the association until the next LAZ Council is ushered in office at an effective annual general meeting.
The correct position is that the Council of LAZ only changes office at an elective annual general meeting, and we have not had an annual general meeting to usher in the new council because of this coronavirus pandemic, and that time will come as soon as the pandemic has come to an end. So it's unfortunate that it's gone to the public to say we, particularly myself and my colleagues on the council, have mandate to speak on behalf of the association. That is not the position. The position is that we have that mandate until the next council is ushered into office at the annual general meeting. It has to happen within the next 3 months or so, because the LAZ rules provide that we have to hold an annual general meeting minimum 9 months from the previous one and maximum 15 months from the last annual general meeting. So our annual general meeting was last held on the 13th of April 2019. So we must have one at least by the 13th of July this year. So we still have the mandate to run the affairs of the association.
The Democratic Party has appealed to government to consider giving risk allowances to frontline medical personnel during the COVID-19 pandemic. DP National Spokesperson Judith Kabemba notes that doctors and nurses are risking their lives and doing a lot, hence there is need to give them these incentives. Ms. Kabemba states that inasmuch as it is evident that no amount of money can compensate for the risk that medical personnel are being exposed to, it is just noble to show appreciation and care. And Ms. Kabemba has further appealed to government to seriously consider providing enough protective personal equipment, PPE, to medical personnel in various hospitals so that they are consistently protected, rather than the current situation where some hospitals and clinics do not have adequate PPEs and medical personnel are only wearing them where there is an emergency. She states that her party continues to appreciate the services provided by health workers across the country to save lives and only hopes that government will look into their plight to lessen the burden.
You see, our doctors and nurses are risking their lives a lot. They are doing a lot in order to save lives, and therefore it is just prudent that this incentive is given to them. We are alive to the fact that no amount of money can compare to the risk that our medical personnel are going through. However, it is just noble to show appreciation to them. Secondly, we are also appealing to government to seriously consider providing enough protective personal equipment to our medical personnel across the country. The current situation where most of the hospitals don't have the PPE and our medical personnel are only wearing them when there's an emergency is quite very risky for them.
The Center for Primary Care Research, University of Zambia School of Medicine, says there is need to advocate for the enactment of more comprehensive tobacco and nicotine products control bill, which reflects the dictates of World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control in view of preventing the further spread of COVID-19 pandemic. The bill legislates factors that are known to facilitate quitting of tobacco use, among them graphic health warning signs on cigarette packs and increase of taxes to make tobacco less affordable. Speaking during a media briefing in Lusaka, organization principal investigator Faston Goma notes that smokers are more prone to COVID-19 infections and has since proposed the need to strengthen the smoking ban in public places, as it is one way of helping smokers to stop smoking. Professor Goma explains that most smokers get discouraged by the inhibitions that are put in the system and are thus encouraged to kick out the bad habit of smoking.
We now have evidence that tobacco users are more prone to severe COVID-19 infections. What is disheartening is to hear that actually smokers have increased their smoking to cope with the stress of the pandemic. And so sales for tobacco have actually increased in certain outlets. At a time when the country is faced with an imminent tragedy, this is something that needs to be addressed by all of us, more so us from the field of science.
Manali Constituency 2021 aspiring Member of Parliament Lacson Kankande says police brutality is not the solution in our country in curbing COVID-19. Mr. Kankande has called on government to come up with an initiative that will help bar owners to survive on the same business, helping bar owners who survive on the same business to put food on the table for their families. He has lamented that police are not helping the situation but taking advantage of the situation to brutalize the citizens. Meanwhile, Mr. Kankande has advised the government to identify a team of professional medical personnel that can be on the ground to advise citizens on matters regarding COVID-19.
So in as much as the government is not doing enough to bring a better solution to this, people still going to disobey the rules that the government put in place. So the best thing that the government need to look at is what is it that it has done for these people, that the bar owners and the likes, that these people's business have been affected. Because we have a lot of people that we mingle every day who do not do social distancing, like markets. We look at how the police move in their vehicles. You find that in a single van, there are bulky people. Even the contact with these people that they are beating, it can also affect the same police officers to get infected with the same virus.
The local authority in Mukoshi district revoked 3 trading licenses and seized a number of assorted alcoholic beverages for going against the measures put in place to fight the spread of the coronavirus. Confirming the development, Mukoshi District Council Secretary Caroline Chanda says the council has been closely monitoring bars and trading facilities to ensure that they comply to the set-up measures aimed at averting the further spread of COVID-19 pandemic. And Central Province Permanent Secretary Bernard Chomba, who conducted a check around the district, called for coordination among all stakeholders spearheading the fight against the spread of COVID-19. More details in this report.
It is such misinformation that has prompted the provincial administration in Central Province to step up information dissemination on the prevention of the further spread of COVID-19.
For 40 seconds, pena sopo. Kusamba sopo na na sopo
Mr. Chomba also advised the district leadership to work as a team.
I've seen in the team here in Mkushi, you are not coordinating as others are doing. And you may make us now lose the battle, which we have almost won in Central Province. Can we please work as a team? This virus, you cannot fight it alone. It needs concerted effort from all the departments. It is each one's responsibility to see that we observe what we have been guided.
And Mkushi District Council Secretary Caroline Chanda says the local authority has revoked some trading licenses for going against the measures put in place to fight the coronavirus.
As Mkushi Town Council, we have been on the ground to ensure that people comply to the presidential directive. We have been monitoring bars on a daily basis, day and night, and we've confiscated a number of beer from bars that were trading illegally, and also revoked licenses for those that did not comply with the presidential directive.
Meanwhile, the district health director outlined measures put in place by his department.
Remember, Mkushi is quite a high-risk place. If you look at some of our society, the farm blocks, these are people who have got preview to come in and out of the district with, using the airspace at will. And luckily, through the ZAF, the farm block has been put, the airplanes have been grounded. No one is allowed to use any airplane to leave Mkushi, because we need to make sure that everyone who moves out and in, we are accountable, so that we minimize any risk of someone leaving the district in sickness and coming back with COVID-19.
For Zanis in Mkushi District, Central Province, I'm Kelvin Tembo.
A public health advocate has expressed concern over the continued increased misleading information on social media platforms concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. Enoch Mwito, who is also Public Health Association of Zambia scientist, says that some people are making the problem of COVID-19 look bigger than the actual situation. Mwito has encouraged members of the public to get information from reliable sources, such as the Ministry of Health websites and platforms in Zambia, to avoid being misled. He has, however, expressed happiness that 3/4 of the people in the country are adhering to the preventative measures that have been put in place aimed at averting the further spread of the coronavirus.
So it is very important that people are able to verify the information from the sources it is coming from. You know, we have reputable sources like the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health Facebook page is able to provide updates on how we can handle ourselves during this pandemic. And also WHO, World Health Organization, have websites on Facebook which you can visit and even verify the information that is studying what the WHO are giving and also what the Ministry of Health in Zambia are giving to. We also have a Center for Disease Control and Prevention. They are able to provide reputable sources of information which is helpful during this pandemic. Now, a lot of people are being misled during this COVID-19. It is very important that when you find information which you are not sure of, you verify it with the actual sources I have mentioned, so that you don't get yourself to be panic and even to mislead others. You know, this COVID-19 is very real, and people need to adhere to the measures which have been put in place. So you make sure the information you have, it is verified, and you look for the sources. The log itself from the information, from the source which has been provided, you make sure that indeed it is a rightful source.
And finally, in our news, Absa Bank Zambia PLC has announced an opt-in relief package for eligible customers impacted by COVID-19 with effect Wednesday, 15th April 2020. Absa Bank Zambia PLC Managing Director Mzinga Melu says following thoughtful consideration and engagements with regulators, the Bankers Association of Zambia and Absa Group Limited, the bank is proceeding to extend a comprehensive retail business banking and corporate relief package effective Wednesday, 15th April 2020. Ms. Melu adds that the package, which includes a 3-month payment relief among other payment relief solutions, is one way of helping bring possibilities to life for customers. She has, however, urged those customers who are able to continue meeting their debt service obligations to continue with repayments to allow the bank reach out to many more clients who are not in a similar position, stating that eligible customers in need of short-term liquidity will qualify for the relief package that applies to Absa credit products. She has explained that the relief measures apply to Absa Zambia's business banking, premier, prestige and personal banking retail customers, further adding that the package incorporates a 3-month payment relief and allows customers to reduce or defer their monthly installments. Ms. Melo has assured that the package will not attract additional administration fees for customers, and support will entail solutions based on their unique requirements and operations, further disclosing that the corporate banking clients' requests will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. She has stated that in implementing this package, Absa Bank Zambia PLC will comply with applicable laws and regulations in Zambia, whilst remaining committed to delivering banking solutions that are tailored for its diverse customer base. This is contained in a statement made available to Q News by Absa Bank Zambia PLC Communications Manager Banji Lufungulo. To end the news, we recap on stories making headlines. President Edgar Lungu has ordered for a complete lockdown on Kafue town starting Wednesday, 15th April 2020, to allow for a thorough screening exercise of COVID-19 and disinfection of the district. And at least 7 people have died in various road traffic accidents which happened across the country during the Easter holiday. We end the news. Thank you for watching.